Do you ever wonder why some people have everything handed to them? Be it a dream job, be it a dream internship, be it that dream project. Everything is just given to them on a platter, while some of us over here have to really send our resumes into the void waiting for a miracle. Well, that's not a coincidence. That's social capital. And if you think hard work is enough to succeed, well, I've got bad news for you. The real world doesn't work like that. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Today we're going to be breaking down what is social capital and what does it entail, why does it have its opportunities and its inequalities, and how can you really use it to your advantage even if you are not born into privilege. So what is social capital? Social capital is essentially the value of your network. Think of it like a hidden currency, one that opens doors, creates opportunities, and even shields people from failure. If financial capital is money and human capital is skills, then social capital is your ability to leverage relationships for success. Let's break it down with a simple example. Candidate number 1 does all the research about the job that he wants to apply for. For the job that he wants to apply for, he's getting all the papers together, he's got his resume perfectly done, he contacts the people, he goes for the interview, and he's waiting for the call from the hiring manager. But the call never really comes. While candidate number 2, who just makes a call to his uncle, and this uncle happens to know the hiring manager. And guess what? Who gets hired? Boom! Candidate number 2. Sociologist Pierre Bourdieu was one of the first to study social capital as a form of power. He argued that the wealthy don't just pass down money, they pass down networks and influence. The higher your social capital, the more access you have to jobs, opportunities, and privilege. Here's a fact for you. 85% of jobs are filled through networking, not applications. So here are the 3 types of social capital. Not all social capital is the same. Depending on the network you have, your access to opportunities vary. Bonding capital, your inner circle. Bonding capital refers to your close-knit relationships or your close-knit circles. Could be your family, friends, your friends, social circles, religious communities, cultural communities. This type of capital creates a strong sense of community, but it often lacks diversity and opportunity. Example, immigrant families often help each other with jobs, housing, and resources. But if everyone in your circle is from the same background, you might not have access to external power structures. Bridging capital. Weak ties is equal to big break. Bridging capital is all about weak ties. People who are not your best friends are the ones who will usually connect you to better opportunities. Research by sociologist Mark Granovetter in The Strength of Weak Ties 1973 found that the most job opportunities come from acquaintances and not close friends. Example, the LinkedIn connection you barely know suddenly hooks you up with a great job opportunity. Crazy fact, 56% of people get their jobs or opportunities through weak ties and not their best friends or close friends. Linking capital, power and influence. This is the most elite form of social capital, the most highest level of powerful individuals who connect you to higher places. It's what gives CEOs, politicians, entrepreneurs at the high level access to opportunities that a lot of other people would never even have heard of. For example, think about how Ivy League students get access to the best jobs or land the best jobs without even moving a finger, because those schools that they went to, those elite schools that they went to, put them into powerful rooms or access to powerful rooms and powerful people. Social capital and inequality. But here's where things get messy. Social capital doesn't just create opportunities, it creates deep inequality. Harvard versus community college effect. If you go to an elite university, you're not just going there for the education. You are buying yourself into a lot of powerful network that is laid out to you when you are part of such an Ivy League school. Harvard student graduates with 0 experience but lands a top job. Community college student has the talent, has the skills, but does not land that job because of the lack of these connections. Well, elite schools, as we know, aren't just about education, it's about access. It's about entering these kind of doors, which are usually gate-kept. It is about how privilege multiplies social capital. 70% of wealth is inherited, and so is capital. 20% of health is inherited, and so are networks. A rich kid's "I'll ask my dad's friend" is a poor kid's "I'll just supply and pray." Social capital in the digital age. The internet is where it changed the game. It democratized a lot of access that a lot of these elite schools, a lot of these elite institutions, a lot of these elite powerful structures were gatekeeping. With the whole break of internet, we were able to access and create clout, that is influence for us, or even just networks for us, without having these powerful networks, without going to all these expensive schools. Now you can build your social capital without even being born into privilege. Artists who went viral without record labels, just with the use of TikTok, remixing songs or remixing certain audios, they got access to a lot of other people. And that is what they hacked the algorithm of what it leaks, or what it takes to have a viral video, what it takes to become viral, the virality hack. Writers who got job offers through viral Twitter threads. Entrepreneurs building brands without traditional networks. So if you don't have traditional connections, one can always build that network digitally. Now, how to build your own social capital? Social capital isn't just something that you're born with. It is something that you can strategically cultivate for yourself, even if you're not born into privilege. The key is to understand how relationships work psychologically and use it to your advantage to create stronger networks. To create stronger networks, genuine connections, and authentic relationships. Be a giver, not just a taker. The biggest mistakes that people usually make is when creating a network, thinking that it's a one-way street. If you think that you can just contact these people whenever you need something, then maybe you are mistaken over there. That connection won't really last. Instead, focus on creating value way before even asking for favors. For example, instead of directly DMing someone on LinkedIn on "can you help me find a job," engage with their content, like their posts, comment, or directly say that this is what you do, introduce yourself, or leverage your skills. This builds a kind of trust before you even ask something. Psychological insight. This ties into Robert Cialdini's principle of reciprocity. When you give something of value, people feel a sense of inherent social obligation to return the favor. This is why offering help before asking for it creates stronger connections. Leverage weak ties. People think that their close friends and families will help them land the best jobs, but study shows and proves otherwise. Maybe your childhood friend is great for emotional support, but that coworker that you worked with 3 years ago may be the one who would help you in your next career move. Stay connected with your weak ties. You never know where they can help you and where you can help them as well. Show up in the right spaces. Environment dictates your opportunities. If you're only hanging around in the same circle, then maybe you will not be able to access a lot of opportunities way beyond your circle, way beyond this group. The best way to develop diverse social capital is to intentionally put yourself into circles, into groups, into networks that are very different than yours, that belong to a completely different sector, that make you maybe feel a little uncomfortable at first, but later it goes along. Lines with Albert Bandura's social learning theory, which states that we learn behaviors and opportunities through observation and exposure. The more time you spend around ambitious, successful people, the more likely you are to adopt their strategies and gain access to their networks. While social capital can be a powerful tool, it also has a dark, exclusionary side. Certain individuals and groups hold access to power, creating barriers to those or for those who lack that pre-access to those networks. The Nepo baby, people who get ahead in careers only and solely due to their family connections. Nepo baby just exploded in the pop culture. We've always seen that actor, that actress who lands the most important role of this year with having zero talent or no skills, and someone who actually has the talent and has the training and is more suitable to do that role. But this person just gets the role or gets the job because of who their parents are. So I'm from India, so I'm going to speak from that perspective as well. Bollywood, the Indian film industry, has now been witnessing a rise of all the Nepo babies. One could argue, of course, what do you mean? If your family has a pharmacy, then maybe your family will pass on the pharmacy to their children or to you, right? They're not going to pass the pharmacy to their neighbors. I get that argument. But now that we're looking at the Nepo baby concept, we're just looking at what is the merit behind it. Is it really the talent, or is it just really having connections in higher places? Sociologist Pierre Bourdieu's theory of cultural capital highlights how advantages in social networks and familial connections can create unequal opportunities. Essentially, individuals with powerful family networks benefit from cultural capital, the knowledge, connections, and behaviors that come with having the kind of an upbringing, kind of make it easy for them to gain access to elite spaces, leaving others at a disadvantage. The networking pro. someone who treats every interaction as transactional. Networking bro is the person who can't have a decent conversation without asking, what can you do for me? They don't care about growing their relationships or their personal circle or their networking circle. They just are interested in what you can bring to the table for them. We've seen so many of these people at networking events where they don't really ask you who you are, what do you do, or they're not really genuinely interested in getting to know you or have a connection with you or, any of that. They just want to see if you're going to be able to help them in their journey or not. Sometimes it's just direct and to the point. Transactional relationships are built on self-interest rather than mutual support. While a little self-promotion is very important, but having that stretched out for too long can make one person seem a little inauthentic. According to Darrell Bem's self-perception theory, people tend to shape their attitudes based on their behavior. In the case of transactional networking, the more you act in self-interest, the less likely people are to trust you, and the more likely you'll push others away. Weak tie flex, casually mentioning a loose connection to seem important. This is more like name dropping, where you casually just drop a name in a setting of that networking or whatever situation that you are in to make it look like, oh, you know that person in that place, or you have reach in higher places. We've seen this so many times. It's like, oh, do you know where I went last night? I went to the opening of XYZ artist because he's been working with me since such a long time. Now he has a new movie coming out, and the producer from the left-wing side was there, and we are doing a collaboration with James, who's just won an award at the national level, and you don't know any one of them. But it sounds very important because they are name-dropping people who you think maybe are important. But here's the thing, someone who's casually always name-dropping people into their conversations, they have no real connection with any of those people. Social identity theory suggests that people create their connections by feeling that they have a sense of belonging or they belong to that network as they associate with a group or an individual, and so on and so on. However, using weak ties to boost your social capital can backfire many a times because people can get to know that it's inauthentic, that you don't know those people, and that person can lose credibility because of that. Clout chasing, building influence without any real value. Clout chasing is when you are in the pursuit of creating influence. Clout, what does clout mean? Clout is influence. Chasing clout is chasing influence. Many a times you will see a lot of people on Instagram who maybe they have a lot of followers, but most of those followers are bought because they want to make it look like that they have all these followers. And when you try to show that you have this clout, even though it's fake, you can get a lot of brand deals. You can get yourself positioned as a micro-influencer. So many clout chasers will do anything at any cost to associate themselves with people in those higher individual settings that they think that they can benefit from the clout that the other person has. For example, someone who just suddenly becomes an Instagram influencer who's tagging celebrities left, right, and center but has no real connection to them, and they're not really bringing any valuable content to the platform as well. You must have seen this new boom where you will see on TikTok or on Instagram or on Facebook, there's some party happening or there's some marketplace happening and there's this one person who's hosting that marketplace or hosting that party. So you're like, what are they doing hosting the party in a marketplace or in a jewelry setting? So you have micro-influencers and clout chasers of the existing network to be able to leverage from an already set up network. Maslow's hierarchy of needs emphasizes that people seek belonging and esteem, and when these needs aren't met, they may turn to external validation through clout chasing. This behavior can lead to short-term success, but ultimately harms trust and reputation, as maybe the individual is seen as disingenuous. Social capital is a powerful tool in today's time and age, which, if used correctly, can open doors, create opportunities, and lead you to different places. However, like any tool, this too can be misused. The key is to understanding how these networks work, using your privilege responsibly, and staying true to yourself. But there is one more crucial layer to social capital that we need to talk about: privilege. Privilege isn't just about your money and status, it is about who you know, how much do you know that person, where all do you know that person or those people that can open doors wide and far away for you. While social capital can be built over time, people it starts at an advantage based on factors that didn't choose, like race, gender, socioeconomic background, or nationality. There are different types of privileges that we usually have. Well, there are many types of privileges that we usually have. Nationality privilege, maybe you have a powerful passport, maybe you have an EU passport or a US passport, or you have any passport which has a lot more power than the other passports. You might be able to travel to a lot of countries without the need of a visa. You might be able to work in a lot of countries without the need to do a lot of documentation. So that already puts you at an advantage than the others. Then you have the race privilege, which is usually we've seen systemically that white people have always had it easier than black or brown people in terms of opportunities, in terms of progress, in terms of resources, in terms of all of it. Gender privilege. Many a times, yesterday was Women's Day, and it's incredible that the fight for women, the fight for social justice, the fight for equality has led women to so many different places, but there's a long way still to go. Yet you will see in many corporate organizations, in many corporations, in every sector, that there is an imbalance at the business table, at the negotiating table, between the ratio of male to female. We have the socio-economic background privilege. Some people are born rich, born into privilege, and some people are not. So how does privilege affect social capital? Inherited networks. If you're just born into a rich family, you don't have to do anything to build from scratch. You just inherit all those social networks. You just inherit all those networks without really having to work for it at all. That uncle that you know will just get you a job at the top firm that you want to work at. That other aunt that you know will probably get you an assistant director's job, and then probably you will be directing your first feature film. Then we have gatekeeping in networks. What is gatekeeping? Gatekeeping is when I think that I am powerful in the film industry and I come from a rich, privileged film background family. I'm going to gatekeep this sector. That means I'm not going to let in a lot of talented new people because I don't know them. They don't come from the rich families that I know. Instead, I'm going to gatekeep, and I'm just going to let other of these rich kids come in who maybe have less talent than the other fresh ones who actually have studied and actually have the talent for it. But I'm going to gatekeep so that only these people that I know who are family friends get access to the opportunities and not this crew. So certain networks are harder to access if you don't fit a certain profile. In industries, it could be racial barriers in tech, it could be that finance bros, it could be access to the industry, film industry, it could be so many different sectors where you don't have access. Sometimes privilege isn't about having fewer opportunities, it's about having fewer barriers. If you don't have to worry about visa restrictions, language barriers, money, economic status, financial instability, you can conquer the world. You can do everything that you want. You can really access and have everything without having to think about, oh, I have to pay the rent. Oh, if I have to go there, I have to submit so many documents because I have a passport which is not deemed as so powerful. Or I have to save up 6 months in advance to be able to do this. But you could use your privilege to make social capital a little more equitable. You have the privilege, everyone starts from the same place. Share your access. If you have connections, help the others who don't. Mentor and support. Social capital is one of the strongest tools for upward mobility. If you've benefited from it, then pay it forward. Value over transaction. Social capital is not just collecting people for personal gain. It's about creating genuine, valuable relationships. Relying on weak ties or clout chasing will backfire. That it's important to create those long, deep relationships that pay off. Leverage your strength. You have access to powerful people, or you simply have knowledge and skills. Use what you have to create mutual benefit. Finally, recognize that social capital is a resource, and like any resource, it has its responsibility. How you use your network, your connections, your skills will ultimately shape the world around you. Are you going to use it to exploit and hoard power, or to create lasting positive change? That's the question.